What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the Edison Club. I'm your host, Mike, and today I have a Lightsworn rulings video for you all. So one of the biggest learning curves that I've encountered throughout my Lightsworn journey in Edison format is just having to kind of pick up little bits of breadcrumbs throughout all of my tournament runs and apply them to the next one. And then I end up learning even more things at the next one. So lots of breadcrumbs, lots of little grains of sand, and eventually you look over one day and you have a whole sandcastle. So I wanted to make a Lightsworn rulings video to hopefully kind of expedite that process for newer Lightsworn players that are wanting to play the deck, to where you don't have to have quite so much like trial and error or learning the hard way. So I want to make this and call it the most important Lightsworn rulings that you need to know. So we're going to go over all these rulings. I do have quite a few, lots of ground to cover today. Before we get started, as always, please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe. It really just motivates me to keep going, getting better at the game, as well as content creation. Also, while you're here, head on down to this video's description and follow the links I have posted to the other Edison format content creators. Odds are, if you like what I make, you'll like what they make as well. Also, if you would like to donate to the channel, my Cash App, PayPal, and Venmo are all down there as well. So let's get started. The first thing that we're going to talk about today is cost versus effect, and I have the perfect card to start with. It's going to be Celestia Lightsworn Angel. Now you're going to notice a little bit of lag on this. I'm sorry, this is like PlayStation 2 graphics. Please bear with me. I'm still learning how to make some of these presentations like this. So the first thing we're going to talk about with Celestia is the fact that sending the top 4 cards of your deck to the graveyard is a cost. So this card is still going to send the top 4 no matter what happens, as long as the summon is successful, i.e. no Solemn Judgment. So Skill Drain, Light, and Imprisoning Mirror do not prevent Celestia from sending the top 4 cards of the deck to the graveyard, as it is a cost. You also mill 4 for cost first, and then you select your target or targets for destruction. Sometimes I'll see people tribute summon Celestia and they'll be sitting here thinking. They'll say, I'll target both. And then they mill 4. You mill 4 first and then target up to 2 cards for destruction. This effect cannot be activated if Macrocosmos is on the field. Same goes for like Fissure, Banisher of the Radiance, Banisher of the Light, anything that turns the graveyard into a banished pile. You have to be able to send the top 4 cards of your deck to the graveyard. I don't remember if this is in here or not, but obviously you can't do it if you only have 3 cards in your deck. You have to be able to send at least 4, and they have to touch your graveyard. Yeah, there we go. This effect cannot be activated if you have less than 4 cards in your deck. So this one is also one I see people get wrong pretty frequently. Because this card sends cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard for a cost, the key word here is cost, and not by an effect. The effect of Garoth Lightsworn Warrior will not activate when Celestia finishes resolving. This is a highly debated topic. I promise you that Garoth does not trigger when Celestia mills. You can see right here on Garoth, each time a card is sent from your deck to the graveyard by the effect of a Lightsworn monster you control. So Celestia does not mill for effect, but rather for cost. So that should hopefully help clear this up. But don't be triggering your Garoths while Celestia is activating. So next on the list, we have effects that do not activate. Jane and Solar Purity and Light are the 2 that I have picked here to discuss today. Both of these attack boost and attack minuses effects are continuous. These effects do not start a chain. They do not activate. Since they don't activate, they're not negated by Light Imprisoning Mirror. So if Jane can still attack over Laquari while there's a Light Imprisoning Mirror on the field, because Jane's effect to gain 300 attack when it attacks is not an activated effect, in the same way that Solar Purity and Light's effect to reduce the attack of all your opponent's monsters during their battle phase by 300 also does not activate. Now, Jane's effect to mill 2 cards from the top of the deck to the graveyard during the end phase is an activated effect and will be negated by Light Imprisoning Mirror. Also, don't get this confused because neither one of these effects work under Skill Drain, right? So we're talking specifically about Light Imprisoning Mirror that says negate the effects of light monsters on the field and in the graveyard. So these effects are still active while that card is on the field. And same thing goes for Herald of Orange Light and Gladiator Beast War Chariot. They cannot be chained to either one of these effects, as these effects do not activate. So don't let anybody try to War Chariot your Jane gaining 300. It's not an activated effect. All right, moving right along, we're making great time. Ryko Lightsworn Hunter, everyone's favorite boy in Edison format. This is a two-part effect. The milling effect is mandatory no matter what happens. If a Ryko gets flipped face up, unless something on the field specifically negates its effect, like Ancient Forest, the card is always going to mill. The popping effect is optional. So you see this sometimes against like Stardust Dragon. The Stardust attacks a Ryko, they'll flip up and just choose to mill. If that effect is negated, so let's say your Ryko gets flipped face up and you target a Stardust on the field or a Titanial, and that effect is negated by Stardust or Titanial, then Ryko will not mill or pop. So if they're trying to like Stardust the pop effect, then it negates the entire effect of Ryko. So hopefully that makes sense there. The card will always mill no matter what if it's flipped, but the popping is optional. So because this is a two-part effect, cards like Dupe Frog and Dimensional Alchemist will miss their activation timing when they're destroyed by Ryko, because Ryko will destroy the Dupe Frog and then send the top 3 cards of the deck to the graveyard. Therefore, the last thing that happens is Dupe Frog not hitting the grave, but rather 3 cards from the top of my deck going to the graveyard. Same with Dimensional Alchemist. Ryko does, in fact, target in Edison format. It was later errata to not target in advanced format. The card 100% targets in Edison. I've seen some people debate that lately as well. All right, Ehren Lightsworn Monk, one of my favorite Lightsworn cards. So Ehren's effect activates after set monsters are flipped face up in substep 2, meaning that Ehren does not prevent flip effect monsters from triggering. So if this card attacks a hamster, if it attacks a Ryko, a Gravekeeper Spy, whatever, that monster is still going to get its effect. It's still going to activate. This is something people go back and forth with all the time, and I can promise you that if Ehren Lightsworn Monk was like Mystic Swordsman level 2, where it just didn't flip the monster, there would be a lot of decks playing Ehren with like Charge and Rhoda as like a mini engine to just be able to stop flip effects. It 100% still flips face up and still activates. So when this effect is applied, it's in substep 4 of the damage step. So damage calculation does not occur. So if Ehren attacks a spy, you will not take any damage because it's before damage calculation. So here's one of the most interesting interactions in Edison format. What happens if Ehren attacks a set Ryko? And it's probably not what you think. So when Ehren attacks and flips up a Ryko, the following is what happens. Ryko flips face up, targets a card on the field, destroys it, gets shuffled back into the deck, and then mills 3. So the Ryko could technically actually mill itself, which is kind of hilarious. So this is what happens when Ehren attacks a set Ryko. All right, next we're going to talk about Aurkus, the most undervalued Lightsworn in the entire deck. One of my favorites. The card that can just get you so many like niche interactions and just turns off a lot of things that you wouldn't actually think about. So if Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer attacks over Aurkus, your opponent cannot target Lightsworn monsters in your graveyard to banish, as Aurkus' continuous effect is still applying. Shouts to Masha, aka the Ice Queen, for pointing this one out. I actually didn't know this one. So Aurkus is still considered to be on the field until the very end of the damage step. So the continuous effect is still applying. So they will have to choose non-Lightsworn cards to be able to banish off of Kaiku if they run over Aurkus with Kaiku. Keep in mind that Aurkus is going to prevent your opponent from using cards like Pot of Avarice to return their own Lightsworn monsters, which generally are going to be Ryko. If you play against like a Hamster Ryko Kaius deck, like Machina, they can't target their Rykos to shuffle them back into the deck. So that does come up. It's pretty niche, but don't miss that one. And also keep in mind that Aurkus prevents your own Lumina from being able to revive monsters. So if you have Aurkus and Lumina, you can't discard and bring back another Lightsworn because Aurkus is preventing that. Same thing goes in Monster Reincarnation. Don't have Aurkus up and try to reincarnate back Lumina because it doesn't work. Beckoning Light, however, does still work because Beckoning Light does not target. So you are all good to activate Beckoning while Aurkus is on the field. Okay, next, Light and Darkness Dragon. Everyone knows how annoying this card can be. For some decks, primarily rogue decks, this can just be such a big issue for you to try to deal with. A deck like Hero Beat, Vlad can lose 500 attack and defense to negate a card any number of times per turn until it gets low enough where it can no longer negate. But that is not a problem for Lightsworn because of 2 specific examples here. Lumina, or any Lightsworn monster actually, and Honest. So Honest effect on the field to return itself to the hand is not a once per turn effect. So that means that the effect can be used as many times as you need to run Lad all the way out of negates and then attack over it with Honest. I've done this many times. It's very, very nice. It comes up. The effect of your end phase Lightsworn monsters milling. So this is like Lumina, Aurkus, Ehren, Lyla, all of those guys. If it is negated by Light and Darkness Dragon, the effect will activate again in the same end phase again and again and again until Lad runs out of negates. So you have a lot of ways that Light and Darkness Dragon does not really affect you as a Lightsworn player. There's also a very niche one put at the bottom in an asterisk that Lyla can also continuously target a spell or trap on the field to put Lad to 0 negate. So if they have like Lad with the discard trap set, if you're playing against frogs, you can summon Lyla, affect target, affect target, affect target, affect target until Lad goes to 0. So hadn't really thought about that one. It makes sense, but shouts to one of the guys in the Lightsworn Discord group for pointing that one out. So that is Light and Darkness Dragon. Next, we're going to talk about Lyla, Lightsworn Sorceress, and priority. So I always say that Lyla doesn't really have priority because if basically anything touches this card when it comes down, it doesn't get priority. So this ignition effect activates and resolves on the field. This effect targets a spell or trap card your opponent controls. If the target is not destroyed, the target is not destroyed if Lyla cannot be changed to defense position. So you really see this come up with Bottomless Trap Hole and like Book of Moon. So if I summon Lyla and I say I'll use Prio target and they chain another trap card as Bottomless, my Lyla does not destroy the original target because Lyla was unable to be changed to defense position by its own effect. That part is also important because let's say they have 2 set back row, you summon Lyla, you target one of them for priority. They chain the other one, which is Book of Moon, and put your Lyla in defense. A lot of players would think that Lyla would still resolve because now it's in defense, but it doesn't. It has to be changed by its own effect. So Book of Moon also makes it not work with priority. The effect changes Lyla to defense position. It's not a cost, even if the target is not destroyed. So sometimes you'll just see weird things like that happen. So keep all this in mind with Lyla, that Lyla doesn't really have priority. Next, we'll talk about Kristya, the honorary Lightsworn. And it's just a few niche things here I wanted to point out in case you were playing Kristya Sworn. Kristya stacks itself back to the top of the deck under Light and Prisoning Mirror, but not Skill Drain or Fiendish Chain. Shoutouts to ProStorm. And if you summon Kristya in response to the activation of Vayu, so this is going to be primarily with a card like Call of the Haunted or Miraculous Descent, Vayu and Sirocco will still get banished. Those effects have to resolve as far as they can. Now, technically, if they have like Vayu, Sirocco, Armor Master, then they can just pick which one of those they want to banish for this. But they do still have to banish the Vayu and another piece of that to make the effect go as far as it can. Figured I'd point that out for any Kristya Sworn players. Next, we're going to talk about Beckoning Light, and you're about to see a ton of text pop up on the screen. But don't let this be intimidating because they all go relatively quickly. Discarding for Beckoning Light is not a cost. So if you flip over Beckoning Light, you ask for a response, they say no response, you pitch your hand, it's too late to chain Crow. It is not a cost. Now you're in resolution of Beckoning Light. Beckoning Light does not target. When you resolve Beckoning Light, you first discard, then pick your cards to add to your hand, so you can add cards to your hand that you actually initially discarded while resolving Beckoning Light. You cannot activate Beckoning Light if you have no cards in your hand. You cannot activate Beckoning Light if there are fewer light monsters in your graveyard than there are cards in your hand, even if one or more of the cards in your hand are light monsters. So essentially, you have to make sure if you have 5 light monsters in your hand and you activate Beckoning, that you have 5 or more in your graveyard light monsters to be able to initially activate this card. You can activate Beckoning Light while Macrocosmos is active, but since no cards will be discarded to the graveyard, you cannot add any light monsters from your graveyard to your hand. If Macrocosmos is chained to the activation of Beckoning Light, you discard your entire hand and add nothing back. So if a card like Disappear or DD Crow is chained, and there are now fewer light monsters in your graveyard than cards in your hand, so if I have 5 in my hand, 5 in my grave, they chain Crow and put me to 4, Beckoning Light will resolve without effect. You don't discard your hand or add cards to your hand. These rulings right here actually ripped straight from EdisonFormat.com. So go check that out if you want to see these for yourself. So that wasn't too bad, right? That rounds off Beckoning Light. So Honest sometimes can just honestly be kind of confusing. So this effect can activate in sub-step 1, the start of the damage step, Substep 3 before damage calculation, or substep 4 damage calculation. This effect activates and resolves in the hand. It's not negated by Light Imprisoning Mirror. This effect cannot be activated while Dimensional Fissure, Macrocosmos, Banisher of the Radiance, Banisher of the Light, any of those things are active. Chainlink 1 Honest is always going to win if it's in substep 4, the last available substep to use this effect. Using turn player priority means that you always win the Honest battle. If I'm attacking with my Cyber Dragon into my opponent's Cyber Dragon, we both have Honest. If I use priority in substep 4, then their Honest is not going to be able to beat mine. Honest math is actually quite easy. Just think of it as the monster you're using Honest on getting in a direct attack. They're always going to take your monster's attack points as damage when you're using Honest. And then with 2 Honest, so if I have a Lyla and I drop double Honest, they're going to take Lyla's attack 1 time and the monster that Lyla is battling's attack 1 time. Pretty easy to remember once you get used to that. So, honorable mentions today, we have Judgment Dragon versus Book of Moon. Contrary to what a lot of people believe, if Book of Moon is chained to the activation of Judgment Dragon's effect to destroy the field, a lot of people think that JD nukes itself. It does not. Judgment Dragon is all other cards in the field except this card. It'll just be face down. It will still recognize that it is Judgment Dragon and not destroy itself. And I have a little bit of a typo here. I have Gore token, but don't forget that the Gore's token that is summoned off Gore's the Emissary of Darkness is a light monster. So you can use Honest on the Gore's token. I've actually beaten so many people like that. If I just summon Gore's in defense, the token in attack, and they just instinctively attack the token for whatever reason, I just drop Honest on it. I've had a lot of people have to pick up and read Gore's, so that's definitely relevant to that. So I think that's about it. If I forgot anything that's very important, please comment down below and let me know what I forgot. And I hope that this helps you guys along the way with your Lightsworn journey and makes things a little bit easier. So thank you guys for watching. This is Mike from the Edison Club signing out until the next one. Take care, everyone.
Hamster Ryko Caius, Hamster Ryko Caius. I go check the pairings, I'm like, don't know who this guy is. Hamster Ryko Caius, Hamster Ryko Caius. 2-0 every round, man, and I ain't even trying. It's just Hamster Ryko Caius, Hamster Ryko Caius, Hamster Ryko Caius. Hamster Ryko Caius, Hamster Ryko Caius. I go check the pairings, I'm like, don't know who this guy is. Hamster Ryko Caius, Hamster Ryko Caius. 2-0 every round, man, and I ain't even trying. It's just Hamster Ryko Caius, Hamster Ryko Caius, Hamster Ryko Caius.